Welcome to the Brew Coffee Tavern, where every cup tells a story, and every story starts with a sip. Join us on a journey of adventure, camaraderie, and of course, the finest brews, served hot and steeped in mystery. From dragons to ancient legends, we're brewing up more than just coffee. Today's tale begins with the group departing the small town where they met Bradicus, leaving the comfort of its bustling tavern and setting out into the wilderness once more. Days have passed since their paths converged, and the companions find themselves deep within an untamed forest, following the map's cryptic trail. As they journey through twisting paths and overgrown terrain, their camaraderie grows, but so does the sense of unease. The map's secrets remain elusive, and the weight of their quest begins to settle heavily on them, foreshadowing the challenges to come. But before we dive into today's adventure, a quick word from our sponsor.
Plot holes. They lurk in the shadows of your story, waiting to derail your narrative when you least expect it. But don't worry, A Fiction Writer's Guide to Plot Holes by author Anne Snizek is here to help. This handy guide gives you the tools you need to spot, fix, and prevent plot holes before they become a problem. Ready to keep your story airtight? Grab your copy on Amazon today.
Now, grab your mug, settle in, and get ready for the next chapter in our brewing saga. Episode 5, Fate's Guidance. The road away from the tavern had been long and winding, carrying them further from the safety of Trefalion, where they had first met Bradicus Aurelius. The warrior monk had joined their quest with little hesitation, his humor and strength a welcome balance to the group. His stories of valor and mishaps had made the days pass quicker, but now, the journey was growing heavier. It had been 3 days since they'd left that cozy tavern, the warm glow of its hearth fading into memory as the wilds swallowed them whole. The map Java carried had guided them to this dense forest, each step further from civilization and closer to the ancient ruins it promised. The once clear markings on the map were now muddled with age and cryptic symbols that none of them could decipher fully.
We've been over this Java.
Nived grumbled for the third time that morning.
But I still don't get it. We're heading in the right direction, right? So why do I feel like we're going in circles?
Java kept his focus on the parchment, his eyes scanning the faded ink.
Because it's not a straight path, Nived. Ancient maps are tricky. Especially magic ones. They were made for people who already knew what they were looking for.
Bradicus chuckled from the back of the group, his deep voice cutting through the tense morning air.
So we're heading for ruins that could crumble on top of us, with a guide who doesn't know where he's going. Brilliant plan. I love it.
I do know where I'm going.
Java shot back, his wings fluttering indignantly. Bradicus grinned, tugging on his long beard, and said,
I'm sure you do, little one. I'll just keep following until you lead us off a cliff.
Patches walked beside them, her calico fur rippling as her sharp eyes scanned the woods. She stayed quiet, sensing the frustration bubbling under the surface. The tension had grown since the day before when the trail had seemed to vanish altogether, leaving them wandering through a labyrinth of trees. The group pressed on as the day dragged forward, their usual banter dulled by exhaustion. By mid-afternoon, even Bradicus's jokes had quieted, and Java's determination was beginning to waver. When they reached a small clearing, Java flopped down on a patch of moss, his claws still clutching the map.
We're not lost.
He muttered, almost to himself.
We're just figuring it out.
Nived dropped beside him, resting his head on his claws.
This figuring it out business is exhausting.
The sun moved steadily across the sky as they sat in weary silence. The distant hoot of an owl broke the stillness, and Patches' ears twitched. She stood, her tail lashing, and sniffed the air.
I think we should.
A sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing. Leaves swirled in a chaotic dance around them, and a strange stillness followed. Bradicus stood immediately, his hand on the hilt of his weapon, his eyes scanning the area. From the shadows between trees, a figure emerged. She moved with an unnatural grace, her deep blue and silver robes flowing as though caught in an unseen current. Her white hair gleamed in the scattered light, falling in intricate braids, and her faintly glowing eyes seemed to pierce straight into their souls. Java scrambled to his feet, his claws clutching the map protectively.
Who are you?
The woman's voice was calm yet commanding, a melodic tone that demanded attention.
I am Fate Skuld, a seeker of threads yet unwound. You tread a dangerous path, little ones.
Nived blinked, confused.
Threads? Unwound? What's she talking about?
Patches stepped forward, her hackles slightly raised.
What do you want with us?
Fate tilted her head, her glowing eyes settling on the map and Java's claws.
It is not what I want, but what you seek.
She gestured toward the parchment.
The answers you follow will lead to more than treasure. They may alter the fate of the land itself.
Bradicus narrowed his eyes.
And you just happen to show up now? Why should we trust you?
Fate smiled faintly, as though amused by the question.
You have no reason to trust me. But if you wish to find the ruins and decode the final clues, you will need my guidance.
Java hesitated, looking down at the map. He felt a strange pull in her presence, as though the map itself recognized her.
You know where we're going?
She nodded.
I know where the path ends. But beware, the blend you seek is hunted by forces darker than you can imagine.
The group exchanged uneasy glances. Fate's cryptic words stirred both hope and dread, but they had little choice. Their journey was far from over, and the shadows around them were only growing deeper.
Lead the way then. But know this, we don't take kindly to betrayal.
Patches said at last, her voice steady despite the apprehension in her eyes. Fate chuckled softly, her robes shimmering as she turned.
A wise precaution, catfolk. Follow me, and I will show you what lies ahead.
With that, the group gathered their belongings and followed Fate into the woods, their hearts heavy with uncertainty. The ruins awaited, and with them, answers that could change everything. They trudged behind Fate, her robes catching the occasional beam of fading light peeking through the trees. The silence stretched long and heavy, broken only by the sound from their footsteps. Finally, Nived broke the tension.
So, Fate, you've got to tell me, did you actually plan to find us? Or were you just wandering around hoping to bump into some clueless adventurers?
Fate glanced back over her shoulder, her glowing eyes faintly amused.
I walk where the threads of destiny pull me. You happen to be at the center of a particularly tangled knot.
Nived groaned.
More threads and knots. Great. I was hoping for a straight answer.
Bradicus barked a laugh as he walked.
If I've learned anything, Dragonling, it's that mystics never give you straight answers. Keeps us guessing, doesn't it?
Fate's lips curved into a faint smile, though she didn't respond. Java, who had been walking beside her, looked up at the Norn with wide eyes.
You said the blend could change the fate of the land. What does that mean?
Fate's expression turned somber.
It means that what you seek is no mere recipe or treasure. It is ancient magic, older than the trees around us, older than the ruins themselves. Used wisely, it could bring balance. Used unwisely.
She trailed off, her glowing eyes darkening.
So, you think we shouldn't find it?
Java's wings drooped slightly. Fate replied, her tone softening.
On the contrary. The question is not whether you should find it, but whether you are prepared for the responsibility it carries.
The group fell silent again, each lost in thought. Nived broke it once more, though his tone was more subdued.
So, what's your deal, Bradicus? You haven't said much about yourself since you joined us. Just a lot of jokes.
Bradicus grinned, his hand resting on the hilt of the sword strapped to his waist.
What's there to say? I'm a simple monk with a taste for adventure and a penchant for trouble.
Patches snorted softly.
That much is clear. But why join us? You had a good thing going in that tavern from what I saw.
Bradicus shrugged.
Call it wanderlust. Or maybe I just saw something in this ragtag crew of yours. Besides, someone's got to keep you all alive.
He added with a wink. Nived rolled his eyes, but smirked.
Big talk for someone who got his boots stuck in a barrel back at the tavern.
Bradicus laughed heartily.
Touché, little dragon. Touché.
Java, still clutching the map, glanced back at Patches.
What about you, Patches? Why did you stick around after helping us out of that mess?
Patches flicked her tail thoughtfully.
I could say it's because you two clearly need a responsible adult around, but truthfully,
She hesitated, her ears flicking back briefly.
I've been looking for something too. And I think this journey might help me find it.
What are you looking for?
Java tilted his head. Patches smiled faintly.
Answers. About my past. About who I am. About who I'm supposed to become.
She left it at that, her tone making it clear she wasn't ready to share more. The group's quiet introspection was interrupted by a sudden rustling in the bushes ahead. Bradicus stepped forward immediately, his weapon drawn, while Fate simply raised a hand, her expression calm.
Do not fear. We are not alone, but not all forces here are hostile.
That's reassuring.
Nived narrowed his eyes. The bushes parted, and a small creature with glowing eyes and a furry body emerged, chirping curiously. It looked like a cross between a fox and a squirrel, with tiny antlers sprouting from its head. Patches crouched down, holding out a hand.
Easy, little one. We won't hurt you.
The creature sniffed her hand before scampering closer, chittering excitedly. Fate watched the interaction with quiet interest.
The forest has its guardians. They watch and they judge. Be kind to them, and they may aid you.
Patches stroked the creature's fur, her expression softening.
We could use a little kindness right about now.
As the group resumed their journey, the creature followed them, darting between trees and occasionally chirping as if offering directions. The mood lightened slightly, though the weight of Fate's warnings still hung in the air. Java smiled to himself, thinking of the friends he'd made last summer at the Wolfswood Folks Fair. Aside from Patches, they were his favorite forest friends. He'd met the queen and her daughter and watched the talented archers who competed at the festival they held. They reached the edge of a steep ravine just as the sun dipped below the horizon and the moon rose high in the sky, casting its silver light over the jagged rocks below. Across the gap, a crumbling archway marked the entrance to the ruins. The moonlight bathed the clearing in a pale glow, the ravine before them cutting a dark, jagged line through the forest. The rope bridge stretched across the gap, swaying ominously in the breeze. Beyond it, the faint outlines of crumbling stone structures emerged from the shadows. Bradicus whistled low.
Well, isn't this charming? Nothing says welcome like a rickety bridge over a bottomless pit.
Nived squinted into the darkness below, his tail curling slightly.
Is it just me, or does this feel wrong? Like someone's watching us.
Java adjusted the map in his claws, his wings twitching nervously.
The map led us here, so there must be something important on the other side.
Fate stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly as she gazed across the ravine.
This is not your final destination, of course, but it is significant. The place beyond holds a piece of what you will need to face the trials ahead.
Piece of what?
Patches asked, her tail flicking as she eyed the swaying bridge. Fate didn't answer directly.
You will see when the time comes.
Of course, more cryptic riddles.
Bradicus clapped him on the shoulder with a hearty laugh.
That's the spirit, lad. Nothing worth doing is ever straightforward.
He strode toward the bridge, testing the first wooden plank with his boot. It groaned under his weight but held firm.
I'll go first. If it can hold me, it can hold the rest of you.
The bridge creaked and swayed as Bradicus made his way across. He reached the other side and turned, waving them forward.
Come on. It's not as bad as it looks.
Nived gave a tired snort.
Says the guy with legs long enough to step over half the gaps.
Java grinned.
That's what wings are for!
Both dragons were too tired to fly, but their wings did make it easier to jump the gaps. One by one, they crossed. Java clung to the ropes with his small claws, his wings fluttering to keep his balance. Patches followed close behind, her feline agility serving her well. Nived grumbled the whole way, muttering about how dragons weren't meant for rope bridges. Fate brought up the rear, her movements graceful and unhurried, as if the bridge dared not challenge her. When they all reached the other side, they stood before the ruins, a cluster of collapsed walls and shattered columns, overgrown with moss and vines. The air felt heavy, charged with a faint hum of energy. Bradicus lit a lantern to push back at the encroaching darkness. Patch's eyes scanning the stonework.
This place is old. Older than anything I've seen before.
Not just old, it is a remnant of the ancient magic that shaped this land. What lies here may aid you, but it will not give itself willingly.
So, what are we looking for?
Java held the map tightly, his golden green eyes reflecting the pale light. Fate tilted her head, as if listening to something only she could hear.
A shard of power, hidden within. It is both a key and a guide.
Great. We're looking for a magic rock in a pile of other rocks. Easy.
Stay close. If this place holds power, it probably holds danger too.
Patches warned, her ears swiveling. The group stepped cautiously into the ruins, their lantern casting long shadows on the cracked stone. Bradicus ran a hand along one of the walls, examining the faded carvings etched into the surface, tracing over the symbols.
Looks like some kind of script. Can't read it, though. Any of you?
It is an ancient language, lost to time. But its meaning can still be felt.
Fate stepped closer, her glowing eyes narrowing. She placed her hand over the carvings, and the symbols flared briefly with golden light before fading again. Nived's wings flaring slightly.
Whoa! What did you do?
I asked it to listen.
Fate replied cryptically, her gaze moving to a nearby doorway.
Through there lies what you seek. But tread carefully.
They moved through the archway into a smaller chamber, its floor littered with debris. In the center stood a pedestal, and atop it rested a small crystal, glowing faintly with a bluish light. Java stepped forward, his claws clicking softly against the stone.
That's it?
It looks harmless.
Bradicus said, though he kept his weapon at the ready. Fate's voice was low and steady.
Looks are often deceiving.
As Java reached for the crystal, the air around them shifted, and the faint hum grew into a low rumble. Shadows began to coalesce around the edges of the room, forming into dark, writhing shapes, stopping him before he actually touched it. Patch's claws unsheathed.
Looks like it's not going to let us take it without a fight.
Good. I was starting to get bored.
Bradicus said with a grin, stepping forward.
Of course the magic rock has guardians.
The shapes lunged, and the group sprang into action. Java ducked and weaved, using his speed to stay ahead of the shadowy forms, while Nived unleashed a fiery breath that momentarily dispersed one of the creatures. Patches moved with feline precision, her strikes landing true, while Bradicus's laughter echoed through the chamber as his blade cut through the darkness. Fate stood back, her glowing eyes fixed on the pedestal. She raised her hand, murmuring words in an ancient tongue, and the crystal flared brighter.
Hurry! The crystal will reveal its power only if you claim it now.
Java darted forward, leaping onto the pedestal. His claws closed around the crystal just as a shadow lunged at him, but the moment he touched it, a wave of light burst from the shard, pushing the darkness back. The shadows dissolved, leaving the chamber eerily quiet. Java held the crystal tightly, its glow now steady and warm. Fate stepped forward, her expression unreadable.
You have done well. This shard will guide you to the next step of your journey. Guard it carefully.
Java nodded, his small chest puffed out with pride.
We'll keep it safe.
As they left the ruins, the crystal's light cast a gentle glow revealing the path ahead, leading them some distance away to a clearing where they set up camp. Though their ultimate destination was unknown, they now carried a piece of the power they would need to reach it. In the flickering firelight from the newly built campsite, Java knelt by the crystalline shard they had just discovered. His eyes flickered as he carefully held up the shard, letting the light dance through its facets in a dazzling array of colors. It shimmered faintly, as if responding to his touch. Nived padded closer, his bright blue eyes narrowing in curiosity. Java muttered thoughtfully,
This crystal, it feels familiar.
Nived tilted his head, the long eye ridges over his bright eyes furrowing.
You're right. It's a lot like the one we found in that underground chamber days ago. Isn't it?
Java nodded, reaching into the pouch he always kept strapped to his side. He pulled out the first crystal they had discovered, its surface gleaming faintly in the growing twilight. Placing the two shards side by side, they emitted a soft hum in unison, their light synchronizing into a single, pulsing rhythm. The others gathered around, watching as Java carefully arranged the crystals. Patches, her calico fur bristling slightly with intrigue, leaned closer.
Do they connect?
Java turned the crystals over in his claws, testing their edges. He felt a slight groove line up, and with a faint click, the shards locked together perfectly, forming a larger, more intricate piece. A mixture of excitement and bewilderment spread among the group as they exchanged glances. Bradicus stroked his braided beard thoughtfully.
Looks like pieces of something bigger. A key, maybe?
Fate, silent until now, stepped forward. Her mystic presence seemed to draw the soft light toward her as she observed the newly joined crystals. With a measured tone, she said,
There is one more piece you possess. Nived, do you remember the small metal trinket you carried when you first met Java?
Nived blinked, then rummaged through his own pouch. He retrieved a small, intricately wrought metal fragment, something he had nearly forgotten about in the excitement of their travels. It had been clutched in his claws when he and Java first met and nearly ran into each other, literally.
I thought it was just a random bit of metal.
Nived said, turning the piece over in his claws. Fate's eyes gleamed with quiet understanding.
It is no mere trinket. Try fitting it with the crystals.
Working together, Nived and Java carefully aligned the metal fragment with the connected crystals. As soon as the pieces clicked into place, a radiant glow enveloped the entire object. The once separate components now formed a single, unified device, a crystalline and metallic object shaped vaguely like an ancient key, with intricate runes etched along its surface. The hum grew louder, resonating through the air around them. Patches took a cautious step back, her tail flicking nervously.
What exactly did we just make?
Fate studied the glowing key-like object, her expression grave but calm.
A piece of an ancient puzzle. This is not yet complete, but it is part of something far greater, a tool to unlock what lies ahead. Without it, continuing your threads may be impossible.
Bradicus grinned, adjusting the straps on his pack.
Well, that's handy. Seems like we've been picking up more than just blisters on this journey.
So, what's next? Are there more we need to collect? And if this is a key, what does it go to?
Java tilted his head, his small claws tapping the crystalline key thoughtfully. He blinked up at Fate. Fate gazed into the distance, her silver hair catching the fading light like strands of woven moonlight.
Threads, woven across time, tangled and scattered. Not all are seen, not all can be held. Some lie hidden in places untouched by greed, others are spun within the heart, waiting to be found. You will gather more, yes, but not always with your claws. What you seek is not merely hunted, it is coveted, feared, and misunderstood. Yet its true worth remains unseen by those who chase it. This treasure, if found and kept whole, will shape more than the fate of a single land. It will shape the weave of all who dwell within it.
A faint smile played on her lips, though her eyes held no mirth, only the reflection of distant, unseen horizons.
Follow the threads, little dragons, and guard them well. What you hold will be more precious than any coin, more powerful than any blade, but only if you can keep it from unraveling.
The group fell into silence, the weight of their quest settling over them like a heavy cloak. Nived and Java exchanged a glance, their determination growing stronger. Whatever this puzzle was meant to unlock, they were one step closer to uncovering its purpose. Patches gave a half-smile, her whiskers twitching.
Guess we're not just hunting for treasure anymore. We're hunting for the future.
Bradicus adjusted his pack and settled by the campfire, the warm glow flickering across his face. He stretched his legs out, letting out a contented sigh as he leaned back against a nearby log.
Well, for now, we've got a fire and a bit of rest calling to us. Tomorrow, we'll chase whatever threads fate has laid before us. Tonight, we let the world wait.
The group relaxed, the tension of the day easing as the fire crackled quietly, shadows dancing around them like silent companions that stretched and swayed with the breeze, almost as if they were watching, silent sentinels standing guard against the darkness beyond. Though none spoke of it, there was a shared sense of comfort, as if those shadows weren't just watching but keeping something unseen at bay. In the quiet of the night, the group felt, for a fleeting moment, truly safe. The fire is low, the mugs are empty, and tonight's tale has come to an end. But the journey is far from over. Thank you for gathering with us at Dungeon Brew Coffee Tavern, where adventure brews with every sip. Join us next time as new challenges arise, mysteries deepen, and the magic of the tavern unfolds. If you enjoyed this taste of adventure, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a new episode. We'll save a seat for you at the tavern. See you soon.